My next speaker needs no introduction at all, but please help me in welcoming Mr. Tony Helton.
Thank you for that great introduction. It's my highest honor to be with you today. Good people like you with a sense of community are going to bring the education that students deserve to all our American children, so they will have a brighter future. It is also my honor to speak with my colleagues who are very much in the battle to correct and change education for all. Cheryl Reinstadler was and is and will always be the heart and soul of Team CFA. I've never been around a person in any walk of life, private business, coaching, elected office, or in education, that put more of their inner being into something than Cheryl. Trying to fill her shoes is impossible, and I'm not going to do that. Cheryl Reinstadler raised the bar at Team CFA. We must work together as a team to continue to improve, to continue to educate the next generation of Americans. John and Martha Bryan are life changers. They have changed the lives of everyone in this room. Their selfless generosity to help change American education should be a beacon of direction for us all. You read in our history books of great American heroes. If you have had the honor to meet John Bryan, you have met a real American hero in the flesh. Change is inevitable, but growth is optional. We cannot control or change Mr. Bryan's decision to retire and change the operation of Team CFA. We cannot control or change our dear friend Cheryl Reinstadler's decision to move away from Team CFA and spend more time with her family. But the continued growth of this organization and the growth of us as individuals, we can control. How we react to change will determine the direction and growth of not just Team CFA, not just our staff, not just the affiliated schools, but also the young people we are charged to help. No one here thinks American education is where it should be. No one here is satisfied with our Team CFA schools being average. That stings. Average. Let's face it, when we take away the top 3 schools at the top and the bottom 3 schools, our schools are average. No one here is satisfied with that, but everyone here can do something about that. I put out to you today that we should be B schools or better. Our Team CFA schools must not settle for average. We must not allow the tired excuses of the past 50 years to make our schools wallow in mediocrity, and most importantly, the tired excuses of why we can't must not infiltrate our Team CFA family. We know we have schools in inner cities. We know we have schools that are 98% Hispanic, 98% African American, 100% free and reduced lunch. We know we have schools with children from broken homes. We also know that no matter the circumstance, we have no alternative but to teach all the students who are blessed to serve that enter our doors of any school that ends with a Challenge Foundation Academy. I'm asking you today to embrace the B schools or better mantra laid out before you. Do not qualify it with time limits. Do not qualify it with buts. Do not qualify it with anything. Embrace it. B schools are better. Anything else is beneath the goals of and dignity of our founders, your schools, and our team. The Team CFA organization is a minority partner with your school. We realize that your local board and administration with your teaching staff and families determine your direction. We're so proud to be a small part of that. B schools are better. We must get there together. The Team CFA Board of Directors have relayed in unison that they stand ready to do whatever it takes for our team to be successful. At the board meeting in January, a strategic plan was laid out to grow Team CFA by 3 to 5 schools per year and to help all schools get to B schools or better. The first step in that plan is to assure you we are in this together. No one is pointing fingers or looking down on any school, no matter where they are today. We are all striving to improve from this point forward. We reveal today that Team CFA will employ one instructional coach for every 2 Team CFA schools. These individuals will be in your schools about 50% of the time, as long as you want them there. They will meet with the school director and ask how they can help the leader develop their vision in the school. They will develop relationships with the teaching staff to be a viable resource. No one will have all the answers, but we feel like we are putting together a staff that will be able to get the answers and help your staff push your students forward. Now let me make one thing perfectly clear. I've been lucky in life and had a few lofty titles. Commission chair, dean of students, school director, Southeast regional director. But I'll never be anything but an old ball coach. And all old ball coaches are thieves. We see something that works, an idea, and we take it and use it. I know all of you today are well aware of plagiarism. With that in mind, I want to acknowledge that I will use intellectual property today from, but not limited to, this list. Mark of the New Testament, George W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, Eric C. Scruggs, Michael Lewis, Oprah Winfrey, Nora Ephron, Jane Lynch, Mick Jagger, Les Brown, Will Smith, Matthew of the New Testament, Denzel Washington, Barack Obama, Condoleezza Rice, Martin Luther King Jr., Matthew McConaughey, John Bryan, Aaron Sorkin, Bill Gates, David McCullough Jr., George Saunders, Moses, Eric Schmidt, and, if you would, hand on your heart, the great Lou Holtz. Sorry, Keon. I will take artistic license with many stories. I'll change some. I'll insert myself in some and add to others. I will combine some and flat out make some stuff up. So buckle your seatbelt. And if you think anything, and I mean anything, is meant to be even remotely funny, please laugh out loud. I'm a very sensitive person. All right, here we go. Be positive and nice in everything that you do. Don't tell people your problems. Some of the stuff on social media is crazy. I've seen so many posts on how that person is the worst person in the world and how everyone should stay away from them. And the next day, see them together in selfies. Or see Bible verses at 1 p.m. on Saturday and shots of them drinking in the club at 1 a.m. on Sunday. Or seen, to quote Will Smith, how parents just don't understand. Do not put your business out there on Instagram. Be positive on social media. Be supportive of things, people, and positions. Don't attack folks on their position. Just support yours. Remember, don't tell people your problems because 90% of them don't care. And the other 10% are glad you got them. Here's an example of being positive. When some of the coaches at TJ and I dressed up some years ago as the rock band Kiss, and gave a concert during the talent show to the student body without permission, our boss, Mr. Joe Maimone, was positive he never wanted that to happen again. Here's a real example involving Joe. I was over at TJ one day last year, and Mr. Maimone came up to me and said in sort of a dejected way that he wanted to have the governor or the lieutenant governor give the commencement address. And I said, hey man, that is great. He said, yeah, but we can't get them because their political party's convention is the same weekend as graduation, and both of them are committed to give speeches there and immediately after at other locations. And I said, and let me point out this time that a lot of times they put us intellectuals speaking back to back like this. Don't want to overload anybody. I said in my best intellectual thought process, well, dadgummit, who are you going to get? And he said, I just don't know. We are so desperate. Do you want to do it? Let me tell you a story. A lady sat down with Eric Schmidt, who just became the CEO of Google. Where's Venice? Are you here yet? She's there? She's a Google head. You see, Mr. Schmidt had just offered this lady a position with the growing company. And the lady showed him a spreadsheet and said, this job meets none of the criteria I have laid out for my next career move. Eric put his hand on her sheet and looked the lady dead in the eye and said, don't be an idiot. When you're offered a ticket, you get on a rocket ship. It was excellent career advice. John Bryan wrote in his book on his life, Down the Creek, that his father worked at a general store. And the owner of that store wanted to pay him in stock from the company. Mr. Bryan said his dad turned down that offer because he liked cash. You can never read the future, but maybe that was not the best decision Mr. Bryan's dad ever made. The owner of that general store was J.C. Penney. When companies are growing quickly and are having a lot of impact, careers take care of themselves. And when companies aren't growing quickly or their missions don't matter as much as they should, that's when stagnation and politics come in. If you're offered a seat on a rocket ship, don't ask what seat, just get on. Now, I could have said to Mr. Maimoni that day, no, if I'm not the first pick to speak, then I'm not going to do it. I'm more important than the governor. I didn't do that. I was offered a chance to be the commencement speaker at one of the top-ranked schools in the United States of America. I was offered a chance to give my very limited knowledge to a group of young people who are going to change the world. I was offered a seat on a rocket ship, and baby, I got on. Do you remember the story from the Bible of when God called Moses to action? And Moses repeatedly found excuses not to act. Who am I that I should go to the Pharaoh and bring the sons of Israel out of Egypt? Oh, my Lord, I pray, send some other person. I have sheep to tend. And the people, they won't believe me. Fortunately, Moses recognized the call to serve something greater than himself. He answered the call, led his people, and history was made. You too have been called. The question is, are you optimistic and hopeful, or are you pessimistic and cynical? Here are a few reasons why you should be optimistic and hopeful. You've already decided to help the public. One of the great strengths of America is our active public square. Issues are influenced by the will of the people. That is why an educated citizenry is so important to the success of our country. You are well equipped to participate in these vital debates. My hope is that you will speak out on the issues that matter to you most, participate in your nation's civic life as citizens, certainly not as spectators. You will come to learn that who you are is more important than what you are, and that you have responsibilities to your fellow students, your fellow citizens, your country, and your family. By taking part in American democracy, you will make our country stronger. Always, always take part. Let me be clear. Your nation needs you. Second, you are blessed to live in the greatest nation ever. Here you can strive and succeed as far as you dare to dream. It says something about our country that millions around the world are willing to leave their homes and families and risk everything to come here and realize the American dream. You live in a land that is compassionate and decent. Because we believe in the rights and dignity of our own citizens, we are committed to defending the rights and dignity of people everywhere. In our hearts, we believe all are created equal under God. The liberty we prize is not America's gift to the world. It is Almighty God's gift to humanity. As you serve others, you can inspire others. In 1941, as England was so uncertain what the next minute might hold, Winston Churchill said, "These are not dark days, these are great days. The greatest our country has ever lived, and we must all thank God that we have been allowed this chance, each of us according to our stations, to play a part in making these days memorable in the history of our race." When Churchill uttered these words, many had lost hope in Great Britain's chance for survival against the Nazis. Many doubted the future of freedom. Today, some doubt America's future, and they say our best days are behind us. The other day, I overheard a few people saying, "The kids' music today, those singers are awful. They don't set a good example." Now, in some cases, I guess they're right. But I think back to my high school days, and I guess our singers were better role models. We had such pillars of society and staples of morality like AC/DC, Hank Williams Jr., and Madonna. Some of you that may be just a little older are thinking of the artists of the 60s. No comments necessary by me. Our grandparents thought they had it all right, but Mrs. Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard did not make their mom and dad too happy either. Singers and actors should not be your role models. To quote Eric Scruggs, a dear friend of mine, "I just enjoy the jam, Helton. I don't care about their politics." Well, I took that advice from my friend, and I took it to heart, and boy, do I enjoy the jam. I love the Rolling Stones, go see them every time I can. And I love seeing them in concert. And I used to say, well, I have to go this time because this could be the last time. Now I've bought a gym membership to start working out, so I'll still be around for the next tour. Two things. First, I will not reveal the cost of the tickets because it's absolutely obscene. This is a PG audience. And let me be clear, Mick Jagger is not a role model to me. But I do enjoy the jam. I can't get no satisfaction, though I try, and I try, and I try, and I try. What? I got to calm down. Yeah, one person clap, thank you. Will you call my mother? Yes, today some doubt America's future. And they say that our best days are behind us. I say that given our strengths, one of which is caring, determined people like you, these are not dark days. These are some of the most hopeful, brightest days of our great nation's history. We have left you challenges, no doubt, but you must rise to meet those challenges. You must work hard, harder than the people in this room think you're capable of working, but you can do it to be successful. Let me give you an example of a student who did not work very hard. Me. I'll be honest, I did not have a very good work ethic as a student in high school. I was not really challenged. If I paid attention about 75% of the time in class, I did okay, B's and C's. The other 25% of the time, I studied with an exceptional work ethic, my female classmates. My point is, I was not really challenged by the schoolwork and did very little outside of class. When I went to the University of South Carolina, better known by its proper name to most, God's University, I thought I could do the same thing, but boy, was I wrong. My first paper for my first English class was due, and I spent more time on it than I'd ever spent on any assignment outside of class in my 18 years, about 45 minutes. I walked to the front of our class to turn in the paper with my chest blown out and a little strut. If the professor had made eye contact with me, I was so self-assured, I'm sure I would have winked at her. Lucky for me, she didn't make eye contact. When I returned a couple of days later to the class to get my graded paper, that was positive was an A. I was shocked to see in red ink on the front cover of my paper 3 words. The grade was about 6 inches tall, and it was F. The 3 words are you kidding? Needless to say, the swagger was gone out of my strut and the air was released from my chest. I wanted to quit. I wanted to come back to my home as soon as I could get my car headed this way. I went back to my dorm where I had a roommate that I had met 8 days before. The dorm had 450 students of the 26,000 students of my new school, of whom I knew none. I decided I could not do this. I needed to go back home, work for my mom and dad's business, and forget this college deal. No one in my family had ever gone to college, and I couldn't do it either. I slept on it. And when I awoke, I honestly had a new sense of purpose. I was mad, with all due respect. Those uppity intellectuals were not going to beat me. I thought after that day that I succeeded in college because I was mad, but that wasn't true. If I'd left that grand university that day, it would have been the single worst decision of my entire life. I didn't succeed in college because I got mad. I succeeded because I went to work. I developed a work ethic that would allow only one thing: success. That work ethic, forged in me by my family, revealed to me by God, and unleashed by an honest grade, by an honest professor, has helped me more than any single thing that I can recall. In his first inaugural address on January the 20th, 1981, Ronald Reagan said, "Americans have the capacity now, as we've had in the past, to do whatever needs to be done to preserve this, the greatest bastion of freedom." I believe that with all my heart, mind, and soul. Americans can make education, and therefore our nation, better for the next generation. These are great days. With the leadership of the people in this room, America's greatest days are yet to come. I want to challenge you. I want to challenge each of you here to take on an issue, a complex problem, a deep inequity, and become a specialist on it. For a few hours every week, you can use the power of the internet to get informed. Find others with the same interest, see the barriers, and find ways to cut through them. Don't let complexity stop you. Be activists. Take on big inequities. I feel sure it will be one of the great experiences of your lives. Seek out the most ambitious things for the rest of your life. Travel, get rich, get famous, innovate, lead, fall or stay in love, make and lose fortunes, swim naked in a wild jungle river, after first testing it for snapping turtles, of course. But as you do, to the extent that you can, when you err in the direction of kindness. Do those things that incline you toward the big questions, and avoid the things that will reduce you and make you trivial. That luminous part of you that exists beyond personality, your soul, if you will. It's as bright and shiny as any that has ever been. It's as bright as Shakespeare's, as bright as Gandhi's, as bright as Mother Teresa's. Clear away everything that keeps you separate from this secret and luminous place. Believe it exists. Come to know it better, nurture it, and share its fruits tirelessly. Decisions are made by those who show up. Don't ever forget you're a citizen of this nation. And there are things you can do to lift the human spirit. Things that are easy, things that are free, things that you can do every day. Civility, respect, kindness, character. You are too good to enjoy in someone else's misfortune. Let me go back. You are too good to enjoy in someone else's misfortune. You are too good for gossip and snark. You are too good for intolerance. And since we're in the middle of a presidential election, I think it's worth mentioning that you're too good to think that people who disagree with you are always your enemy. We can all have different ideas and thoughts and still love our country. We should work to bring civility back to politics where friends can disagree and remain friends. I am very conservative in my political beliefs. I'm a member of Florence Baptist Church. I was elected to public office as a Republican, and I've been active in my views. But today, I have a secret for you. I have Democrat friends. I have friends with liberal beliefs. I have friends who are Presbyterian and Catholic and Jewish and every religion and non-religion in between. Don't ever forget that a small group of thoughtful people can change the world. It's the only group that ever really has. Some of you may have grown up like me in neighborhoods where few had the chance to go to college, where being teased for doing well in school was an absolute fact of life, where well-meaning but misguided folks questioned whether a country boy like me from 6 Points, North Carolina, could go to college. There are people you'll meet who will wonder whether a person like you can really make a difference in a student's life, who will doubt that you can help education. They will say, those people at the charter school are just nuts. There will always be folks who try to raise themselves up by cutting other people down. That happens to everyone throughout their life. But when that happens to you, here's what I want you to do. I want you to just stop for a minute and take a deep breath, because sometimes it'll need to be a deep breath. And I want you to think about all those who came before you. Think about your family. Think about the Bryan family. Think about that one student who needs you, and press on because you can. Finally, I ask you to define yourself. In another life, when I was just an old ball coach, and it's been a few years now, at a local restaurant, a football fan was our waiter. The waiter said, "Hey, you're Coach Helton." And I said, "Yes." He said, "Coach, do you know the difference between books in a library and your team on the football field?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Books belong in a library, but your team doesn't belong on the football field." Oh, I was mad. I was going to say that I was pissed, but they're recording this, so I won't say that I was. It was going to ruin my evening. But my dear wife, who is not even yet my fiancée, said, "Honey, don't let someone ruin your evening. You deserve this break and time to relax with your family." You know what? She was absolutely right. I was letting someone else define me. I pushed it aside and enjoyed my family time. And as the waiter came back for the final time with the check, I said, "Sir, I have a question for you. Do you know the difference between Tony Helton and a golf pro?" And he said, "No." I said, "A golf pro gives tips." Now, the young man looked a little confused because he was not a core knowledge student. But I'm sure he got it a little bit later as he cleaned off the table. Define yourself. I'm a man of faith, a father, an education activist, a friend, and a very, very lucky husband. Finding that person that supports you, believes in you, and gives you unconditional love can be a long journey with many sharp turns, and for some of us, a dead end. When you find that person, hold on with every ounce of strength in your body and soul, because that unconditional love is a launching pad to happiness and success. Now the men are saying, oh yuck, and the ladies are all batting their eyes as little hearts explode around their head. But I'm telling you the truth. Don't allow anyone to define your passion for you. Not by your gender, where you were born, or the color of your skin. I'm sure in your experiences, in your career, buying a home, picking your collegiate major, deciding what you want to do with your life, people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. But I've never understood that concept, having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall back on anything except my faith. Yes, I said my faith. I'm going to heaven, there's no doubt. I may have to sit in the back a while, but I'm going to heaven. If I fall, I want to fall forward. At least I figure that way I'll see what I'm going to hit. Fall forward. And here's what I mean. Michael Jordan missed over 9,000 shots. He lost almost 300 games. He missed a shot to win the game 27 times. You don't remember the missed shot or the losses. You remember the wins and the shoes. Fall forward. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiments. Did you know that? I didn't either, because experiment 1,001 was the light bulb. Fall forward. Abraham Lincoln lost 8 elections. Lincoln never gave up. And those last 2 elections were wins that saved a nation. Fall forward. Every failed experiment is one step closer to success. You've got to take risks. And I'm sure you've probably heard that before, but I want to talk about why it is so important today. You will fail at some point in your life. Accept it. You will lose. You will embarrass yourself. You will not be successful at something. There's no doubt about it. Now that's probably not a traditional message, but hey, I'm telling you the truth. Embrace it, because it's inevitable. The point is, every teacher here today has the training and the talent to succeed. But I ask you this, do you have the guts to fail? Do you have the guts to reach that unreachable student? Will you do something different if you're not reaching them, even if it's wrong? If you don't fail, you're not even trying. If you make choices, if you try, you will make mistakes. Turn the page. We're all going to make mistakes. We've got to own them, make amends, and you've got to move on. Once you've admitted them, correct them, and sincerely ask for forgiveness, then move away so you can meet the next challenge. Give your obstacles proper credit. Now, I've given hundreds of speeches in front of 5,000 to 5,000, but I never take it for granted. You have to put the work in. I prepared for today's speech for about 6 hours in writing it and about 3 hours in practicing it. Now, some of you are saying, you mean you practice and it's still this bad? But my point is, prepare yourself for all things. Do not overlook your obstacles. Outwork them. Lou Holtz said, No one has ever drowned in sweat. Hard work works. Working really hard is what successful people do. Never settle. Keep climbing that ladder of success. And as you're doing it, reach back to help others strive to be the best that they can be. That's who we are as Americans. An educated person must also have a commitment to reason. Please don't think this will be easy, because it is not. A commitment to reason takes a great deal of courage and honesty. The only way that you can grow intellectually is to examine your opinions, attack your prejudices consistently with your force of reason, and that can be very unsettling. It's easy to live in a life without questions. It is possible today to live in an insulated world that only echoes your high opinion of yourself and what you think. That is the temptation that educated people must soundly reject. There is absolutely nothing wrong with holding a strong opinion or position and holding it passionately. But in those times when you've decided that you're absolutely right, go and find someone who disagrees. Don't allow yourself the comfort of the amen corner. Examine your opinion and question it always. You must reject false pride. It is absolutely necessary to educate our young people, and it is absolutely necessary to build great respect, dedication, and love in our children for our country. We should all be proud of where it is we come. Our heritage, it may be African, Asian, European, Latino areas, or more. And we should know and keep that wonderful culture alive. But we should also be proud of the one thing that links us all together. We are Americans. By the 8th grade, our curriculum core knowledge will teach our students the cultures of the world, but it will also teach them the richness of America, and it will develop them into good American citizens. This quote is by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I said to my children, I'm going to work and do everything that I can do to see that you get a good education. I don't ever want you to forget that there are millions of God's children who will not and cannot get a good education. And I don't want you feeling that you are better than they are. For you will never be what you ought to be until they are what they ought to be. Let me focus on one fact that is very uncomfortable even to contemplate. According to the most recent testing, the average reading score for a white student at age 13 is about the same as an African American student at age 17. That's a 4-year, 4-grade achievement gap. In an economy where higher skills are ever more necessary, that is scandalous. In a nation dedicated to equal opportunity, that is scandalous. This should be a national scandal demanding action. We at Team CFA, and I know you, believe that it is. None of the solutions are easy. We don't have and should not have a federal education system. Power and responsibility are properly spread on many levels. So the need for reform and creativity is spread on many levels as well. But whatever difficulties we face, they will not be addressed by weakening accountability. There's a growing temptation among public officials in both political parties at the federal, state, and local level to lower expectations, to lower the goals of our children. But any education gains that we make will eventually be undermined by lowering our sights in a classroom. Without meaningful accountability, our sights into reality will be dimmed. Without meaningful accountability, it is poor and minority children who suffer the most. Today, in 2016, we hold in our hands the ability to access more information than most of us ever did in school. And the cry is to reduce our standards? Nonsense. B schools are better. Average is never good enough. If we are not here to be better than average, we're in the wrong place. If you've ever received an email from me, you'll see 4 quotes on the signature line. One from John Bryan: what greater mission than to develop the next generation of Americans? Another by Albert Camus: all that I know about morality and obligations I owe to football. One by Patrick Henry: fear is the passion of slaves. But the one I want to highlight is by Lou Holtz. I can't believe God put us on this earth to be ordinary. Let me say it again. I can't believe God put us on this earth to be ordinary. You want to make God laugh? Tell him what your plans are. A man was looking for a parking place on Christmas Eve because he had several gifts yet to purchase. And he looked up and prayed to God and said, "Oh Lord, if you'll give me a parking place, I'll go to church every Sunday and I'll never drink another drop of alcohol." And at that immediate second, a parking place opened up. The man looked up and said, "Forget it, God, found one myself." B schools are better. Why do you think in most states it was such a fight to get the A through F rankings put into place? I have a theory. It's too easy to understand. When us education nerds start using our own language, the common person tunes us out.
Yes, Mrs. Smith, your child got a 3 on the test. We were hoping for a 4, but a 3 is passing.
Mr. Brown, your student made growth but did not reach the average of the class mean.
Your student's I-STEP scores are near the projected proficiency levels. Your student's AZ merits tests show more remediation in math is necessary. Remember, EOGs and EOCs are coming up. Your child should sleep for a week solid, eat like a fattening hog, and get to school 7 hours early.
We say all those things, and what our parents hear is straight out of Charlie Brown's classroom. Wah, 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 wah. Everyone in America knows A-B good, D-F bad, and C is average. That across-the-board knowledge scares some in the education field absolutely to death. Teaching is hard, but it is not magic. Some like to keep secrets, so excuses are easy to come by. Let's not be counted in their number. The goal of ending achievement gaps should unite Republicans and Democrats. It should unite teachers and parents, business leaders and civil rights leaders. It should unite anyone committed to a reasonable assessment program, transparency with results, and holding the system accountable. Anyone who believes in unleashing local creativity while maintaining clear measures and objectives. When we invest taxpayer dollars, it is only right to insist upon results. And when we find poor results, it is only right to blow the whistle on mediocrity. Equal opportunity is a unifying national purpose, but it is not a natural condition. It must be purposely and carefully built by every generation for the next generation. Equal opportunity must be developed and passed on with kid gloves to the next generation with the strongest instruction, paid for with blood, sweat, and tears, handled with care. It is the continuing goal of education reform. And it really is the continuing work of the civil rights movement. The old excuses of, it's too hard for poor kids, too hard for English as second language Latino kids, too hard for inner city black kids, too hard for rural white kids, too hard from kids from a broken home is absolute, utter nonsense. I, for one, am sick and tired of those excuses and any other. What's the alternative? Not to educate children who are from a tougher background and handicap them and therefore our nation for life? I say no, 1,000 times no. Choices. We all have to make them. I've made my choice. I believe that God's unconditional love will sustain me. I believe it will bring me comfort and happiness in the tough parts of the road of my life. It will enable me to better see the beauty around me. It'll provide a solid foundation amongst a rapidly changing, somewhat impersonal, technology-driven world. It will show you how to love your neighbor, forgive more easily, and approach success with humility and failure without fear. It will inspire you to honor your parents and eventually be a better spouse and parent yourself. It will help you fully grasp the value of life, all life. It will remind you that money, power, and fame are false idols. And I hope and believe that God's love will inspire you to serve others. As you can tell from my accent, I'm from New York City. That's not true. I'm from a little place called Rutherford County, North Carolina. I've lived there my entire life, except when I left to go to the University of South Carolina. And by the way, I live about 10 miles now inside the state line, and all my buddies I went to the University of South Carolina with think I'm a Yankee. I love America. I believe in America. And even with all our flaws and faults, I believe in American exceptionalism, and that the undisputable fact that Americans want to improve their position in life and leave a better place for their children and their grandchildren. You see, I hail from the 9th most economically depressed micro-urban area in America. Our community was made up of, since the early 1900s, textile mills. One was on every corner, employing well over 10,000 local folks at their height. For years, most young men and many young women, once they reached the ripe old age of 16, got out of school early on a work permit and went to work the second shift at the mill. A high school diploma didn't really matter. The cars in the parking lot of the high school that belonged to the students were nicer than those that belonged to the teachers. You did not need the education or the training. The mill would train you and pay you. The cost of living was low, but the wages matched. Then in the mid-1900s, the policies of our country changed. And to quote a famous political figure of that time, H. Ross Perot, my community heard that giant sucking sound as all, and I mean all, the mills closed and the jobs left for cheaper labor in other countries. Our community was devastated. Suddenly there were no jobs. Many businesses closed. Many folks moved. There has not been a notable increase in population in our area in over 25 years. The surge of drugs present in all communities expanded in our area like a dust storm rolling over the plains. Had our schools demanded to educate our students to their full capacity, our people would have had options that are only finally now, and I mean ever so slowly, coming back to our area. There is absolutely nothing, and I want to be clear, absolutely nothing wrong with working in a mill or an industrial setting. I just want that door and every other door open to our young people so they have the chance to choose their direction in life. Whether that'll be going to work, joining the military, going to a tech school, attending a local community college, attending a 4-year institution, or even an Ivy League school. I do not want what we, our community, and school leaders do when a child is in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade to handicap our children and slam doors in their faces that may have been opened and they wanted to walk through. I want to be clear. It was my intention to try and motivate you today. I wanted to thank you and tell you how proud I am to be in your number. Life, it can be hard at times, but it's so wonderful. The struggle is real, but it's rewarding. Let me leave you with a poem today on the struggle and the real answer. The Quitter by Robert W. Service. When you're lost in the wild and you're scared as a child and death looks you bang in the eye and you're sore as a boil, it's according to Hoyle to cock your revolver and die. But the code of a man says fight all you can and self-dissolution is barred. In hunger and woe, oh, it's easy to blow. It's the hell served for breakfast that's hard. You're sick of the game? Well, now that's a shame. You're young, you're brave, and you're bright. You've had a raw deal, I know, but don't squeal. Buckle up, do your damnedest, and fight. It's the plugging away that will win you the day. So don't be a piker, old pard. Just draw on your grit. It's so easy to quit. It's the keeping your chin up that's hard. It's easy to cry that you're beaten and die. It's easy to crawfish and crawl. But to fight and to fight when hope is out of sight, why, that's the best game of them all. And though you come out of each grueling bout all broken, beaten, and scarred, just have one more try. It's easy to die. It's the keeping on living that's hard. Dear friends, our mission is a great moral call to offer every possible chance to the students of America. You have chosen a different path to influence education in America. You know that an educated American citizen who is active in their community will benefit all of us. You know that the mission of John Bryan and Team CFA is to develop good American citizens and to produce B schools or better. I ask you not to get tired. I ask you not to let excuses creep in. I ask you not to accept failure for your school, your students, or yourself. I ask you to take on the hardest job. I ask you to educate the next generation of Americans. What greater mission than to educate the next generation of Americans? What greater mission? God bless you and God bless America.